I can't believe that I'm alive. What do Pink Floyd say? Money, power, wins. I saw someone drive past recently in recent years who had money spelled MUNI, power. And she looks like she won. Because her uncle was a minister of education in the Labor Party. And she'd been put down a lot. Anyway. There's an advertising agency around the corner. Speaking of Pink Floyd, there's an advertising agency around the corner called Them, taken from some 70s album, Us and Them. And if it means anything, it's because there's an all-boys school. And they're supposed to, when they see that sign, think in terms of what they were subliminally think on them are the girls. Dum-de-dum. It's a big, very large, maybe not. Oh dear. I don't know. I've got nothing to do, very little to think about apart from, somebody's taken my dressing gown, somebody's taken 5 pairs of underpants, somebody's taken my car 5 times. There's that Liberal Party senator driving past. Nothing to think about, nothing to do. I'd suggest people close their eyes, get, type of perceptions. When I did that, the inner perception was about a place I would actually get to visit 6 years later. But they had already killed the Robert quote Kennedy guy that I knew locally, and so he was always from the 60s onwards sort of experiencing odd and strange things. He wasn't really the dead Kennedy, but they made him out to be. Poor guy, he was targeted by them, I guess. I was into rock and roll too, sort of for a time there. He'd been befriended by three girls from a school that was started in 1954 called Mercedes-Benz High School. And everybody who went to that school got a case of the Benz, as the curriculum was officially communist curriculum. So, poor old Robert. What am I talking about? The last time, or the only time, or the last time I went to see if he's still around, his place is now spotlessly clean and it looks almost unlived in. The lawn has been mown and no cars in the driveway. Yeah, I don't know where Pink Floyd got their ideas from. I used to sort of vaguely know a girl from up that way, sort of more or less the same place, area that Roberts came from. But she was crazy because she wore pink hot pants. And would go into town to do dancing on Scottish knives on the floor. Anyway, and I figured it out just the other day. I mean, it's taken me 45 years to figure it out. The reason I couldn't figure it out is because in 1972, first year at the university, the Prime Minister of South Australia wore pink hot pants to the Parliament, and I got him on front page, and that's when I started buying newspapers because I'd forgotten that she wore pink hot pants. I don't know, some UK band did songs about it, and the band of America, the band did songs about it too. I don't know whether they were helping or doing quite the opposite, celebrating the poor girls had a bad experience. I don't know. I wonder what Scotland's like. What is Scotland? Back in primary school, they made us make a Union Jack, and apparently it's got, I don't know, icons of flags from Scotland and Wales and some other place, and you fold it together and you get the Union Jack. Yeah. Dum. Oh, I can see the little green light there sort of blinking to say that it's recording my voice. The audio is working. I don't have any cigarettes left either. But there really is some kind of cult going on. No, seriously, there really is some kind of cult going on here. And what they do is build very big buildings in quiet residential suburbs. Like at the moment, they're sort of celebrating what's in Jane Mansfield by doing a whole lot of stuff in the area around where Mansfield Street is. Oh, and it looks like they're spending a lot of money too, or I don't know, doing the place up. It's all to do with the pawnbroker. His uncle, who was the pawnbroker on Unley Road, where there were all these shops, moved to the next street down. And so it seems all those shops on Unley Road moved also to the next street down. And I don't know, even government is involved in, celebrating Jane Mansfield Street. But I'll tell you something, there used to be an orphanage on Mitchell Street where, sort of, as far as I can work out, people, married people would go there to get a child, and they wouldn't have to do much apart from fill in some forms. And I did meet a couple some people who'd been done that way. One was named Terry Winterford. She ended up with the CEO of some very large furniture display room, but they got rid of that. And the Swedish guys, the Ivans of the world, have taken over where that was. Plus, they're building all these apartments that look so totally out of place, where Terry Winterford's parents, her father, had a showroom that covered the entire block. But they got rid of that thanks to Flash Gelati or something like that. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Oh, boy. I think the last time I saw Terry Winterford was Grey Street in Norwood, where she was brought around by some character named Macmillan in a black Mercedes. And I don't know if the story was true, but he said he'd been in a car crash and was waiting for the compensation payment to come through. And that was the last time I saw him or saw Terry Winterford either. But speaking of that street, Grey Street, at the end of it now is a large, I don't know what it is, but it used to be a soft drink factory. And it's no longer a soft drink factory. It's a place where you can store things, like, for storage of places, but it's very, very big. About the John Lennon killing. Okay, let's talk about something topical, shall we? I did meet some people on Grey Street. I met more than some people. I met two ex-junkies. That was the first thing, named Job and Precious. And they were just walking down the street, and I sidled up to them and said, "Who are you?" And they introduced themselves and said, "Oh, we were junkies, but we overnight got a Children of God pamphlet from Moses David, and we stopped being junkies overnight." and Job and Precious are not their real names. This is to do with John Lennon being killed, by the way. Who else did I meet on Grey Street? The thing about Grey Street is at the end, on the left-hand side, I think it is, they had some kind of theatre or, some mansion that had been set up so that supposedly people who wanted to act or do that sort of theatre stuff, acting, could, I don't know, go to this mansion and have a lot of fun. But there's a few other things. And then, of course, we come to the reason for December 8th, 1980. I was walking down the street. I think Job and Precious had sort of vanished. And there were two people standing in their very small front garden on the right side. And one of them sort of suddenly said, "You're my perfect stranger." And I didn't know who it was. The guy, he lived and shared a house with the guy, South African guy, who'd married the elder sister. And so there he was. I didn't really know him either. But the female who said, "You're my perfect stranger," I sort of stopped walking and sort of looked at her and thought, I wonder who this is. Oh, and then it clicked. It was Rowena from high school days. Oh, Rowena. Oh, yeah. I missed the moonwalk. You know how America had the live moonwalk? I missed the live moonwalk because for some just stupid reason, I was close to school, I guess. I went up to her place and got inside, and she said, "Oh, you can't stay. Mum's boyfriend is here." And Mum's boyfriend was sitting on the couch with her, about to watch the moon landing. And I've seen Mum's boyfriend in various places for the last 45 years. Sort of shows up all sorts of places. But I missed the moon landing. So when Rowena, now she was with the brother, the guy who shared a house with the guy who married the elder sister. This time it was, "You're my perfect stranger." And so, of course, what's his name? That guy who met that Japanese woman, Yoko Ono, who had a ladder, like they did when they landed on the moon. You get a ladder up to the spaceship. And when you land, and they put a ladder down, and the ladder, when you finish putting the flag up and hippity-hoppiting around, you get back, climb the ladder and get back into the rocket, and it takes off. Goes off and returns to Earth. But I missed that because Rowena's mother's boyfriend was there. And so that day, which I thought was quite, odd, it's a lot of strange coincidences, isn't it? That Mum's boyfriend would show up for the next 45, 50 years. And that the guy who married the elder sister, who shared a house, though, with the guy who married her, had now almost married Rowena. And she was very small, and he was gigantic, man. He looked like a bear or something. Oh, big beard and there. And so I said, "Goodbye, Rowena." goodbye. I mean, nice to see you. And virtually within just a very short time moved to Henley Beach, which was on the other side of town. As I was working at the time, doing just a routine dull job, similar to a census, and I have been a census worker, but they take a census of who's been born, where were they born, which hospital, that sort of thing. Any perturbations, anything wrong with the baby, and yeah, I was doing that, and so I moved to what was the place called? Henley Beach. But just judging from what's gone on in Henley Beach since then, 40 years later, the new apartments have been built there, and it was just a really a beachside suburb with a very large pub. What else is there? Oh, there was a character there, and I found out later how this happened. Somebody from the Unley High School who maybe knew Rowena or didn't know her would somehow acquire properties in various places and use a particular blue paint to paint the inside walls of the properties he had acquired. Real entrepreneur. And when I was at Henley Beach, I met a poor old guy who was an epileptic named Bob, who would go into town every day to beg because nobody helped the epileptic people. Because there's no sort of real cure. There's no drugs you could give them. And apart from, being able to do that, begging, there was nothing that he or they, that Bob could do. But he had a little dog called Sally. I think it was called Sally, or a different name. And he'd take his little dog by bus into the Rundle Mall, the centre of the town, that it had bricks laid down on the pavement and had statues of pinballs that were 10 feet tall and a big knot in the stainless steel. And poor old Bob, didn't see him very often, didn't talk to him very often. But there were people who followed me home, you see, and they would, when they called in one night, I got clients, I got to see some clients. It was very fortunate because less than a month later, at work in town, on the 7th floor, the boss, whose name was Andrew Taylor, said, look, you're all now, this work is all finished. It's all being computerized. Computers are going to handle it all, and they're going to take over all departments. And so we won't need any workers. So it was very sort of coincidental and fortunate because I happened to have a passport. Decided, okay, I got a payment for working there, had a passport. I had a friend, though, who tried to kill herself, named Verity, whose father or step or her father before they divorced was the professor of English, whose house was named Woodstock, and I don't know why, but they divorced, and so she didn't live with him, and he didn't really manage her or take care of her. And I don't know what happened to her mother, I don't know, somehow one day visited her, and the point that I'm making is, whoops, is the computer still working? Did it just stop or something? Made a funny noise. I did visit her there, and we went out a couple of times, have something to eat, maybe, or go for a walk in town or something. But the newspaper, I'm not kidding, the newspaper had stories about her on the front page. And I don't know whether it was because of that or not, but she sort of went freaked out, didn't use drugs at all, freaked out and slashed her wrists. And then the next time I saw her, visit her, she said, I just tried to kill myself, and showed me the slashed wrists and the bandages. And I thought, good God, well, I'm leaving the country. I think I don't have a job anymore. I'm not employed. I'll leave the country. But I did stay, and then she left Adelaide and went to Sydney. And I don't recall how I knew where she lived, but I had her address and visited her. We went out for a ride in a taxi or something, and I stayed at her place for 5 or 6 days, or maybe more. I could have stayed there for months and months, but I had a passport. It was valid, and I just had raring to go somewhere. Had a passport, got onto a plane. She didn't come to the airport. Her name was Verity, by the way. Verity Walk Hope, and caught a plane. And the plane was funny because we were supposed to go someplace, I think, called Singapore, but we didn't land in Singapore. And then the funny thing was we were supposed to fly somewhere to London, only we didn't fly that way. We flew in a different way over, I don't know where, but it was in the middle of the night is all I can remember. And I did ask the hostess, you got anything that would help me sleep? And she said, oh, yeah, sure. Okay, and gave me a pill. And the thing about the pill was it's not like a sleeping pill you get from a chemist or anything like that. It wasn't cocaine or anything, but it really did put me to sleep. I had a good 8 hours sleep, woke up, and we were just over Europe, just about ready to land in London. And once in London, get all your stuff. And the first thing I thought I'd do is I can't remember the timeline. My memory is sort of very jumbled up and foggy at that point. But I went to Holland, for example, by ferry, and what happened to me in Holland was a big black guy came along with a knife, no, he didn't show the knife. He had a handler who was a white, small guy, and he was saying, you want to buy some drugs? So, no, I said, no, thanks. But he wouldn't let me go, so I had to give him some money, and then the same thing happened later after I'd had dinner near a canal. So the first thing I did was get on a train and just let it take me to wherever I was going, which was a place called Switzerland. Now, the reason it was Switzerland was because it was on newsstands at the time in London, but I didn't see any in Holland, of a place in Switzerland called Meru. So I caught the train, and the train ride was pretty good because it was pretty good. Not speeding along or not, pretty good. And I can't remember how long it took. It was very relaxing. But I eventually got to Switzerland, which was odd because I can't remember a thing about Switzerland either. But I was sitting around in Switzerland I think it was called, is this before or after? Well, I'll go what the memory is. Sitting around by this lake on a park bench and smoking a cigarette thinking, oh, well, where am I? What am I doing? Where next? Where have I just been? And a couple came up to me named Beat and Rita. They introduced themselves as Beat and Rita and said, oh, you want to come to our place? I said, yeah, sure, okay, but I'm 5 years older than you or 2 years older than you or something, and I'm from Australia. And they said, yeah. Rightio, and they both had very, good haircuts and everything else. And Rita was quite, no, she wasn't quite well coiffed, but she was okay, nice too. So we had to go back to Beat's place, and then he announced, oh, you can sleep in my bedroom because I'm going to sleep at Rita's parents' house. And Beat's place was sort of like in the middle of, I don't know, in the middle of Switzerland. They're not in town or anything. And I thought, well, okay, rightio. And, their parents were sort of like, would you like to eat dinner? Thank you very much. It's very nice of you. I mean, they didn't want to say, who are you or anything like that. And went to bed, woke up in the morning, and Beat had returned. And what happened then? So I left. I said, okay, bye-bye. And caught a ferry. I can't quite remember. Was that coming back? I think I caught a ferry to the other side of the lake, and then a mini bus to this place called Seelersburg. And rather than, it could have taken, if I'd gone up that skiing or that thing, the lift down the side of the mountain, it would have taken 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but they wanted to make it as enjoyable as was possible. And so the minibus took us up, started at about 9 o'clock. By noon, we were at someplace for lunch, tables, all sorts of nice windows and everything. Had my lunch, got back on the bus. Some of the passengers had gotten off at that place. I guess they were Swiss citizens. And then the minivan started up again, and by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it reached my destination, which was a place called Seelersburg. And I don't know what it was. I have no idea what it was. I'd read about it somewhere. And once again, as soon as I got off the minivan, the first thing I did is sat on a bench and smoked a cigarette to sort of, where am I? What am I doing? It's a nice view. The air sure is clean. And well, I'm sorry, I like to, laugh at myself. And then after I finished my cigarette, I'm a very dirty person. I just threw the butts in the gutter and thought, well, maybe if some rain comes along, it'll, wash the butts out into the gutter and down wherever butts go, from a mountain side sort of thing. And I got up and had a walk around and we'll see what's happening. Some character came out of the big 10-foot high doors with a very thin moustache, nice suit, a well fitted suit. Looks very, very, what's the word, healthy, agile. Didn't come over to me and say, do you want to come inside or anything? So I got up, when he went back inside the double doors, I went to see, exploring a little bit, and found a back part of the building with a counter and a woman at the counter dressed in a sari, but she was a Western woman. And she sort of looked at me and said, who are you? And I said, oh, I don't know. Well, I can't remember what I said. And next thing she was saying was, well, here's some employment forms. If you want to get a job here. And I thought, well, yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Wouldn't be a bad idea, I suppose, but I don't know. I'm not all that qualified, But whoops, the disk drive just made a funny noise. So I filled out these forms and gave them an address back in Australia. And and then caught the thing that on the side of the mountain sort of thing, I don't know, 5,000, 7,000 feet high. And it's one of the, I guess it was a skiing thing where you'd get on and the thing would go down the side of the mountain on rails or something and, deposit you at the base of the lake, which it did, and it didn't take all that long. When I got to the lake, I saw a sign saying, Carl Jung, famous Swiss psychologist, had a house here on the shores of the lake. So I got onto a ferry. There was no other way to get across the lake unless you tried to swim. And it was funny because there were all these youths or young men, like maybe 17 years old, dressed in what appeared to be military uniforms, blue military uniforms, but not gaudy or show-offy or anything. And while they were all milling around at the other end, this is like how the West was won, how the United States was won when it formed a independent United States by the Blue Army versus the Grey Army. And so the blue guys in their army uniforms were all standing around the other end of the ferry. And I'd never been on a ferry. I had been on a ferry before, but the first ferry, nobody was on it. It was just totally empty. But this one had some passengers. And I was looking at a map the other day, and it may be that they had come from some kind of place where they could go to spend time in the Swiss Alps apart from that Meru place. And let's see what happened next. Well, eventually the ferry got to some place where there was a dock, and they put a thing up, and you could walk across the thing and all the rest of it. But by that stage, I wasn't feeling I was feeling okay, but the going to Meru and applying for work sort of changed my mindset and expectations. And if I was thinking anything, it was how do I get out of here as quickly as possible? Because I didn't really think I wanted to work with that British or that Englishman in his nice grey suit. And I've seen him since then, and he runs the Maharishi TM thing in Britain everywhere, or did for a while. I even forget his name. What was his name? Forget his name. They would tell me who he was by having magazines available in Adelaide after I got back about the place. Clements was his name. That's right, Clements. Clements. Mr. Clements. I didn't see any girls or women apart from the one at the counter. And and then of course the characters wandering across the walkway, who are all taller than Mr. Clements. And some of them appear to be old yogis, but you can't tell with old yogis. And so what happened was, when I got to Switzerland, the first thing I did is caught a bus out to an outer suburb and started hitchhiking. And it's a nice place to be walking, and I had no idea how far I'd have to go. But some character showed up in a nice red sports car and said, "You want to live?" Oh, okay, thanks. And he picked me up, and he drove away. And one thing I did like about Switzerland is there was no pop music anywhere. Like on the guy's radio, no pop music, nothing like that. It was, in Zurich, no shops with pop music. None of that was there. That's one thing I liked. It was sort of quiet. But I'm coughing because of the result of this cigarette. Oh boy. Beat and Rita had, said I could stay, but I didn't want to, overtax them. Or whatever you say, and I caught a bus to Paris. And on the bus from there, no, that's a different place, caught a bus to Paris and found a sort of nice, quiet area of Paris, which was, as it turns out, sort of just off some major important part of Paris. The Eiffel Tower wasn't lit up, but there were just so many Japanese tourists. It was quite unbelievable. And they all had their Japanese-made cameras, and they were wandering around taking pictures of the Eiffel Tower in daylight and Notre Dame in daylight Paris in daylight. And so I decided after a good night's sleep, the sleep was interesting in Paris, I must say, because it took me about half an hour to just nod off, fall asleep. And what was going through my mind were all the things that I was aware of that had taken place in Europe and in Paris. So at the surface was, well, apart from what I just experienced, this is, with eyes closed, laying in bed. First it was Hitler and the Nazis and, invading Paris and all sorts of things like that. Then it quietened down, and then it quietened down further and further, where there were various, movements in Paris until it reached the point, and this was about 10 minutes later, reached the point where the guillotine was used. And and when I don't know, remembered the guillotine, I immediately fell asleep. Just dropped off, fell asleep. And woke up the next morning feeling, pretty good. Sleep. I wasn't smoking very much at all because I just didn't. I mean, cigarettes are about 5 pounds a packet or 3 pounds, whereas nowadays they're anything from $35 to $66 in Australia. Plus the variety wasn't. I didn't know many of the brands. So next day, what happened was but there certainly were a lot of Japanese tourists. So the next day, after I woke up, I caught a bus back to London. And there were quite a lot of people on it, mainly kids, mainly teenagers and stuff. And so I sat at the back of the bus and tried to think I was serious, and some of them were going to school in England or whatever it looked like that way. I didn't see many university students, you see, or people who look like university students. We're sitting on the bus when it stopped and picked up a passenger, and the passenger came on and came and sat right next to me and said, "Hi, I'm Genevieve." And I thought, okay, right you go. Well, and I'm not going to tell you who I am, and or where I come from, for that matter. And so we spent a couple of hours just having, very light conversation. And back in London, when we got there, we had to go over on a ferry. The bus was on a ferry, and the bus had to get to London. And at the bus station, her parents were waiting for her, and she ran off and waved goodbye, see you later. She had given me her phone number, but unfortunately, back in Australia, after being enslaved, someone took the phone number and then did some awful things via this, that, and the other, and completely ruined my day, if you know what I mean. Oh, but in London, I was sort of wandering around afterwards. I went up to see somebody named Heather in some northern town, and oh my God, I didn't stay there very long. It wasn't very welcoming or enjoyable. but caught a train, and on the train platform was a poster for Hindu, what was astrologer, or some words to that effect. So I thought, oh, rightio, well, what else can I? This is all new to me. What else can I do in the Northern Hemisphere? Because, in Holland it was pretty crazy, because apart from having Hare Krishna everywhere, there were drug dealers or people pretending to be robbers, pretending to be drug dealers. So I saw this post saying, oh, Bhgawan Soaham, lotus position. And one of my childhood dreams had always been to own a yellow Lotus car. I'd seen it in a magazine and I thought, oh, wow, I love a yellow Lotus car. But, I had nothing to do, so I caught a bus or a train, I think it was, out to some place called I can't remember, but it was a surface train, and it was remarkable in one way because I don't often take trains back home or here or there, anywhere. And wandered up the street to the address that was on the poster. Went inside, and there were some 4 or 5 very black-looking women sitting in the chairs, waiting for to be seen. And this just shows how it worked. This just shows how it worked. And they're here now. I mean, well, anyway, I saw some of the characters, I think, who were there that day. They're now living in the St. Peter's area because I've been moved out. And they sort of said, oh, well, you can go first if you want. So I said, oh, all right, okay. Went in and a big table made of wood and a tiny little room, and there sitting behind the table was wearing clothes, I might add, not like the posters where he wasn't wearing clothes, not bare-breasted or anything. It was this old person that didn't look old, but was old. And so the first thing he wanted to know, or the first thing he did was quote some of the stuff that Genevieve had said to me, which relaxed me a lot. And I thought, oh, well, that's okay. Clairvoyant telepath, that's okay, that's good. Because what I'd read said he hadn't spoken for, I don't know, 13 years or 16 years or something. And the next question was date of birth and where did it take place. And that was described, and books are opened up and checked out for various things. And then another question, which was about the same type of thing. But I felt satisfied and went out the side door and thought, oh, that was okay. I mean, you never know who you might meet. And took a pamphlet, but when I got back in Australia, someone took the pamphlet. So the only way I could even half recall what was going on was when I moved here, and they were selling a pamphlet on, I don't know, YouTube or something from USA that I could buy, which I did buy, and with buying it, some of the, let's just say, memories returned. So what happened was the return flight was quite funny. They were into that Australian song, "I'm on a highway to hell," in places that I heard it. I don't know, in shops or something. I heard that song being played. So a couple of days later, or a week later, or 2 weeks later, I can't remember, went to the airport, bought a ticket, and they said, "Oh, well, okay, we'll be taking off at something like 3 o'clock this afternoon." And I thought, "Oh, that's good, 3 o'clock, okay, no worries." But you know, they're not fascist Nazi pigs. Whereas in Australia, you do have fascist Nazi pigs. The other thing I sort of thought was good about, or interesting as a change, were who were wandering the streets. But anyway, now I got onto an airplane at about, I think, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but it didn't take off. Or no, earlier than that, but it didn't take off until 3 o'clock the next morning. And to cut a long story short, it flew direct from London to this town with the pilot announcing, "Oh, this is the first direct flight from London to Adelaide." But then he wouldn't let us off the plane. And of course, they had a Royal Standard plane next to the jumbo jet sticking out a Royal Standard. And they were telling us, "You can't get out now, but you'll have to find your way back from where your ticket says you were going." So my ticket said I was going to Sydney, and then had to spend the rest of the day flying to Sydney, which was okay. And then what happened, it's a little bit, I'd lost Verity's address by then. And, lost Verity's address by then. And so I caught another plane to Melbourne. Wasn't there for very long, no more than an hour or two, and then got a plane back to Adelaide. And only to find that the address I'd given in Switzerland to Meru was no longer valid. Not funeral parlour, the orphanage at the end of the street, that was no longer our street. But they had that address. And all I can say is that some funny things did seem to take place after that change of address. But where I moved to, seemingly, was built by whoever killed John Kennedy, President Kennedy, 1963. If you want their names, I can give them to you. I did sort of vaguely help one of the people that was used as part of the plot. Coming from famous communist stage actors, but the person in particular whose name was on the house deed was crazy, totally crazy, and I'm not sure whether she would ever told the truth or didn't. So when she started doing things like talking about killing yourself or this or that or the I asked some people who were connected to Meru in Switzerland, can you help in any way? They said, sure. You can come to Mithki House, and we'll give Samantha a job and get her to do some work. But Samantha, being another one of these crazy people, when asked to go get some food for, I don't know, 6 or 7 people, and there was a character there who was an undercover policeman, German policeman, who was the stepfather or father of a local heroin dealer, local heroin importer. He was there. So when Samantha, her name was Samantha, went to buy food, she came back with a crate of beetroots. And so the people running the weekend course asked me, why did she buy a crate of beetroots? Their names were Ryko and I forget the wife's name. And they lived in Watson Street, so whatever it was. But I don't know what she did, why she bought a crate of beetroots, apart from what I mentioned earlier about meeting Beat and Rita in Switzerland. So in that way, she was able to assume that part of my identity. And as for her whole entire life, being born to communists, that's how they get their identity. And so seemingly that's what identity they got when Kennedy was killed, etc., etc. Aha. But I didn't. So she stayed at Mithki House for a couple of months, but as soon as there was no one there and the place was quiet, she went off to find a friend who happened to be running the Pancake Kitchen in town that was open 24 hours of the day. And just like me smoking a cigarette, they went off to smoke some weed together and went to various places like girls do, and had fun. Meanwhile, I'd moved back to my place, where the people who killed JFK had placed her name on the deed when they built it. I moved back there, and I was recovering from a car accident, and the car accident was no joke. And the car accident was no joke. Why was that? Oh, I won't say, but it was no joke. Various things happened at that place, like the house next door. Some woman visited the house next door, but I'd already spotted her back in '75 as being involved with, a particular heroin importing group run by somebody named Jeff and Lynn. Jeff being connected to a law firm in town called Wallman's. And I'd already seen that she knew them. So when she showed up at the house next door, my thought was, oh, here comes trouble. And I don't know, a year or two later, they had, I think it was Keith Urban band playing next door for 2 years, every night until 2 a.m., which stopped my normal pattern I'm going to sleep 30 minutes after sunset, doing some TM, wait till sunset, go to sleep an hour at most after sunset, wake up 5 o'clock, do some TM, Maharishi TM. And because by then, I won't say, but let's just say that by then, my astrologer friend had gone up. There'd been a fire at his office. And the thing about the one who parked next door is there were fires at places she was involved in, and one was $1 million fire. She's now an associate professor, which is, really good if you want to be an academic. But the fire. Anyway, we won't worry about the fire or the $1 million fire or the fire there or the fire there. And just continue on. I think what happened to Samantha is she went to the United States of America for a holiday or to live there permanently. I'm not sure. I don't care really. But before she went, she showed up at the local small shops that had followed the Pancake Kitchen, or they hadn't yet, but local shops that were open at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, showed up there, bumped into me, downcast, walking down the aisle, looked up, saw me, said, my father's died. Oh, and I just said, well, that's unfortunate, sorry to hear it. How are you doing now? She explained she had a government job out in the bush somewhere or something. Driving a 4-wheel drive car and that sort of thing. And I just said, okay, well, good luck. Because one thing nobody here ever asks you is, what do you want to do? But I should have mentioned, John Lennon getting killed, if that's important at all. I had a car crash here, you see. It had been had to be taken to Mubarak Crash Repairs, which was next door to a shop called Chapman, and that was 1977. They took one look at it and said, that is a wreck. That's a wreck. How much did you pay for it? And so that was lost. But then 3 years later, someone named Chapman, the next door neighbour, killed John Lennon, maybe because, now what was he doing? He was sort of referring and quoting various things that were going on or had gone on here, such as Rowena, You're My Perfect Stranger, or what Job and Precious had said, or what had happened there, or what had happened here. And they had to stop it. And the reason they had to stop it, I guess, is because he was for peace, you see. And that woman who showed up at the neighbour's house, where that band played thereafter for 2 years, they weren't in it for anything apart from, self-promotion. And no peace at all. So what was I thinking? Oh, well, So eventually, I bumped into her and she said, "Oh, her father had died." Oh, and I thought, "Oh, gee, oh, that's oh well." She lost a job thereafter almost immediately with the state government, but went overseas to USA, where the #1 pop song was by Samantha James. And that's her name, Samantha James. And it was a song, something about a spiritual thing, or not a like old-fashioned spiritual sort of song where the slaves sing a spiritual stuff like that. But this was more modern, more modern. And I think she had a good time, is all I'll say. I was going through hell, hell. And it hasn't stopped either. And it got worse, for example, when the Republican black guy, Secretary of State, showed up in a small country town when I was living in a small country town. And he was the Secretary of State to promote Rupert Murdoch's book publishing company called, what's it called? HarperCollins. So when I moved in here, they had a guy who was supposedly a harp player who supposedly killed a lot of kids. You know what I'm saying? It's just garbage. But Samantha had a good time. She told me. Then the last thing I'd know, I think I contacted her again or something. She was all up about that. #1 pop song USA, Samantha James. And then she went up to work at an old folks home because her father had died. She did spend, on my suggestion, living with her grandmother, and her grandmother has died, and it looks like her aunties have died too. Oh boy. and so she claimed to be working at Bellevue old folks home in the hills somewhere. And so what some dirty rotten fink has done here, who owned the petrol station and kept it open all night, called On the Run, has an office in the next street down where his sons work, called Bellevue. And I don't, it doesn't make any sense to anyone, least of all to me. And the thing about Samantha, though, I did ask her, "You still got all that stuff I gave you to look after?" And she was like, "Yeah, I got the silver, but that Vatican letter from John Paul II, when he got shot, that went missing ages ago." So that explained the IRA doing things to coincide with what I was doing. And they haven't stopped, and the IRA supporters appear to be still doing things like that. Oh boy. Huh. After Keith Urban's band played next door, they had Nicole Kidman show up outside the local pub at Norwood one night, and then got her to do movies about what they think is what I had done, such as contacting the United Nations and getting the United Nations to have a year of peace. But they probably think it's about Sri Chinmoy, who was the meditation teacher at the UN. And it is true that I did cut my chin when I was a kid. But, you know, that's called defamation. They defame you. They take away all your fame and glory and make sure you're a slave of the state, or in particular, the Labor Party. I could go on and say, well, I won't go on. Oh, I could go on. At one, oh no, look, this has gone on for 1 hour and 15 minutes, and it's going on for a long time. The thing that no one ever explained about Timothy Leary is when he went to Mexico, there was some vast conference going on of psychologists and psychiatrists. And the only thing anyone ever heard about it was, oh, I took some peyote in Mexico, or Carlos Castaneda, oh, I took some peyote or magic mushrooms in Mexico. But there was a vast conference going on in Mexico where Tim Leary and associates attended. And if anything, they formed the forward path for America or USA after the things they've been through there. So I'm getting a headache at this point. I've only got 2 cigarettes left. They're called Camel. A thing I will say about that band, the Grateful Dead, is, oh no, I won't say the thing about the Grateful Dead either. There is a building fund operating in Sydney at the moment for the California-based Self-Realization Fellowship. So if you want to donate some money to the building fund, please do. They want $1 million or over $1 million for some meeting place in some suburban area. And that'll be the end of that. So the question you have to ask yourself is, who says crime doesn't pay? I don't do crime, but those guys who've been doing big crimes, it certainly has paid off for them. Okay, so Jay Grudez.